we are live. Hi Nancy, welcome to my channel. It's a pleasure. The chat is all pumped up. There are 26 people already. There's Ganesh, there is Wolfrix Gaming, Ashwin. Ashwin is saying, please try and relate Gita to neuroscience. Ashwin, okay, let us do it stream wise. Okay, Gita is tomorrow morning. Let us talk about Gita tomorrow morning. Nancy, I don't know if you know this. We are reading Gita every. Yeah, so I am. I am having a lot of fun. On time, oof, discipline. What is with the surprise? I'm always on time, guys. This is yeah. So my chat is super punctual. Okay, they expect punctuality. So if I'm even like 30 seconds late, that is something called late OP, which is like the worst thing you can tell someone to their face. Okay, like late OP is yeah. Oh wait, hang on. Nancy is muted. All right, cool, cool, cool. Wait, it's not your fault. It's absolutely my fault. Yes. So now it should get sorted. Nancy is muted. No audio. Okay. Nancy, can you say hi?
Hi, I'm Nancy. Hello.
Now, wait. Ganesh, rook. She should be audible now. 1 month ago, I would have panicked. Like, what is happening? Because समझ में नहीं आ रहा है. Why isn't she audible?
Oh man, I
Now,
had this episode like yesterday. I was taking a class for like
yeah,
11 students and they couldn't hear me and I couldn't hear them and I was like, what do I do? Um, it
yeah.
was,
Did you sort it
yeah.
out?
Um, uh, yes,
Yes.
kind of. Yeah,
That's
it was,
all's well that ends well.
yep, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. She's audible. She has a lovely voice. Oh wow. Okay.
Thank you.
We are off to a good start. We are off to a good start. So, uh, first of all,
Hmm.
this week is going to be crazy. Chat, listen. This week is going to be crazy. I've already just done a stream with Vidit. We talked about neuroscience of chess, and that stream went from 5 p.m. to 7:15 or something. And now we're going to talk about neuroscience. No, philosophy. We're going to talk about philosophy of language.
Yep.
Okay. And tomorrow morning we have Gita, and Sunday night we have introverts and extroverts.
And you're a doctor by profession.
Don't distract me.
Yeah, all right, sorry. Yes, we're gonna be talking about philosophy of language.
Yes.
Quite
So
hyped about.
what I'm trying to say is we are going to have a chill discussion today. Nancy, we are going to have a chill discussion today.
You
Okay.
say chill, but I'm like, now that we're live, we're finally live. I'm really pumped because I have an argument. All
Oh
right,
God.
and I've been living this argument for like some time now. And so
Yeah.
if you will join me on this journey, it's gonna be quite a ride.
Okay, so the reason I'm prepping you to be chill is because I know how philosophy discussions get. Okay,
Yeah.
I know. So on my Discord, I was just telling you how I got into this really intense discussion, and I know how philosophical arguments can get really violent and wild. And I mean, I know you're not that
What?
type.
What kind of philosophy arguments have you been having?
Like the really
Um,
intense kind.
Interesting. Well, let me introduce myself.
Okay.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. I'm Nancy. I'm a law school dropout third year philosophy major.
Mm-hmm.
And so, arguably, I have been privy to some intense philosophy discussions and arguments. And it's never gotten violent, but I see the passion running through people's veins
Yes.
when they're finally talking about something they've been meaning to talk about
But
for a
also,
while.
it must help that you went from law school, even if you did drop out, but you went from law school to philosophy. It's like you couldn't get enough argument in law school, so you chose philosophy.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I'm still in touch with some of my law school friends, and to them this seems like a completely moot point, right?
Yeah.
But for me, having been in law school is just like it was a journey.
I'm
Um,
sure. I'm sure. So, Darshan, when was part one? Part one was around three
2 weeks
weeks
ago.
ago. 2 weeks ago.
Yes.
Yes. So with Shatarupa, we had talked about why talk about philosophy at all, and that was part one. This is part two where we talk about language because, hey, it's the basis of everything that we
Hmm.
discuss. And part three will be in 2 weeks where we talk about postmodernism. So it's a very, very.
Have fun. I'm
Thank you,
just.
thank you, Nancy.
Um,
Let's start the conversation.
yes, please. Yes, let's do this.
Uh,
Um,
yeah, tell me, what's on your
okay.
mind?
What's on my mind is that, your first stream about philosophy was why talk about it at all, right?
Yeah,
And I mean, that was incredible. A1 content. I loved it.
thank you.
And it did touch upon like a lot of the most immediate types of philosophy you come across. So political philosophy and existentialism and postmodernism, which is of course the
Yeah,
more topical kind of stuff.
yeah,
Um, but you've taken a detour. We've come to philosophy of language, which people do not land on
right,
like right after they've just begun the conversation for
right.
philosophy of language. Sorry, philosophy in general.
Why is that?
Oh, why is that? That's a good question.
Is it
Well,
because you don't think about it much, or is it because it's considered to be like something that you need to know a lot of other things before you get to this? Is it like a specialization or
yeah, yeah. Okay, so it is a specialization,
okay?
but the thing is, I mean, you need a lot of different types of philosophy to make complete sense out of it. You need some metaphysics, you need some logic,
Hmm.
you need just general idea of how philosophy is done. Um,
Okay, okay.
but we don't need to worry about that because we're going to
Yeah.
do it anyway. So it
Yes,
doesn't
we
matter.
are. The one of the things that I realized is that while I get why things are taught in a particular structure,
Hmm.
it need not be. There is
Yeah.
a circular way of learning as well. It need not be linear, and even touching upon things that you don't know about, but giving it a context will help people learn it a lot better by themselves later. Which is one of the
Yeah.
first things that I would like to do here on this channel because we are not trying to teach everyone everything, but
Hmm.
give them enough information, make them curious.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's it.
Absolutely.
That's the thing.
Absolutely.
And I'm super curious about language.
Good. Because I have a whole thing ready.
Okay.
Okay. So we're going to start with how philosophy of language as a field started.
Okay.
But of course, I mean, unfortunately, your medium of learning philosophy of language is me,
Sure.
and so it's going to be limited to what I know.
Okay.
And for me, the journey for philosophy of language began with Hobbes and
Okay.
Mill,
Hobbes and
and
Mill.
that's yeah, and
Okay.
that's strange because they're political philosophers. They don't
Okay.
generally. I don't think they write too much about something outside
Okay.
political philosophy. Haven't really
Which
paid
year
attention.
is this?
I haven't checked, but
Okay.
probably
Can
I don't
someone
know. It's
check in the
some
chat? Hobbes and Mill. What year are they from? I just want to know, just for like chronological context. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, well, nothing before. I want to say 1920s, but
Oh,
I, I,
wow,
I can't,
really?
I can't, I can't. Not Hobbes, but at least Mill,
Okay.
is is recent
In
enough.
that time. Okay. So what did they do?
Okay, so we don't actually get to read Hobbes. We only get to say what Mill has to say about Hobbes. And Mill just explains Hobbes as this guy who says, okay, when you give something a name and you talk about them,
Mm-hmm.
you're not actually talking about the object. You're just talking about the image that you have of them in your
Right.
head,
Right. Oh,
right?
we are right there. Okay, we are already right there.
We're all so this is the starting baseline, right?
Amazing. Okay.
Hobbes is just saying, hey, look, if I'm saying Siddharth and I'm saying things about Siddharth, right? Siddharth is enthusiastic,
Sure.
right? according to Hobbes, I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about the image of you I have in my head.
Right, right. Sure, that makes
And
complete sense.
yeah, I mean, it makes sense that that we can't just talk about our conceptions of people. And B, it also makes sense that you are a separate entity and I can't actually access you for who you are and just my conception of you,
Correct. So
right?
hang on, hang on.
Mm-hmm.
Couple of things.
Mm-hmm.
One, um, people are super impressed because you just did a flip with your pen.
Did I?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Like when you picked it up,
Oh, so you mean this?
and now they think you have ninja moves. That is one.
Well, I mean, I've been trying to do this one and it just fails, but soon,
Second
soon.
is,
Mm-hmm.
so Sunny has said that was 1588 to 1679. That
Completely
I
off.
I think you missed because 1920 sounds too recent, like too
Yeah.
recent.
Okay. Okay.
Yes,
I
16th
stand corrected.
century. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, thirdly, let's take a step further back and let's just think about when we talk about language. As somebody just said, Darshan just said that language is the biggest obstruction to knowing oneself because language is what gives the mind its chatter.
Oh, I love that. Wait.
It's a lovely
Okay.
thought.
Yeah.
So he
Yeah.
read it. So yeah, he read this from somewhere
Okay.
that language is the biggest obstruction to knowing oneself because language is what gives the mind its chatter because you use language to, well, the white noise in your brain.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
What interests me is that we use language for everything. Like you and I are
Mm-hmm.
communicating because of language. I'm communicating with the chat because of language.
Mm-hmm.
And if you remove that, we have nothing. Basically, you are just doing things. I'm just doing things, and we are hoping that somewhere things make sense. But as soon as they make sense, it becomes language.
Mm-hmm.
So if you remove verbal language and you go all the way back, okay, all the way back to Stone Age times,
Right.
even there, people were communicating.
Mm-hmm.
If you go still further back, if you go to animals, even there, people were communicating. Animals were communicating. In any any biological environment where one organism and another organism do something together, there is communication.
Right.
So the thing that blows my mind is that when we talk about language, the spectrum, like the meaning of the word, it is so huge that uh, I almost feel like we can't wrap our minds around it. Matlab, like when I keep thinking about it, it's almost too big, too large because everything is language. Without language, nothing is connected to each other, and that is my fundamental problem because uh, eventually when you think of anything, you try to think of, okay, where did it come from? What is this? What am I talking about, right?
Yeah.
And in language, I always get stuck because it's just too big.
Well, no, don't get stuck.
Okay,
Don't get stuck.
all right,
There
help
are
me out.
some
Help me
there's
out.
some very basic ways where language originates from, and
Okay,
you know this just fine, right?
yeah,
It's survival, it's community, and it's gossip.
okay. I like this. I instinctively like this. Wait, okay. So you said language is based on survival. Yes. Community, absolutely. So community and survival are very closely linked.
Yeah.
And you said gossip.
Well, gossip and community are linked, so it
That's
shouldn't be
true.
too. Yeah. In fact, I mean, I find it. I think I'm just quoting *Sapiens*, right?
Okay.
When I say that you, it's weird how people have an instant connection between survival and community, and this is you're not the only one.
Yeah.
Everybody goes through this, right? When they
Correct.
read the gossip paragraph from sapiens, they're
Yeah.
just like, wow.
Yeah.
But how, like, why not? Why is that a no-brainer? I
Yeah.
mean, how is that not a no-brainer?
Hmm.
Because community, if it's not about relations, if it's not about talking about each other and talking about things that interest you,
Yeah.
like, how else would they be formed? It has to be gossip.
That's true. Like if you remove the context, like the
Hmm.
negative context of gossip,
Hmm.
gossip is basically exchange of information.
Yep. And it's building of relations.
It is building relations, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like तूने सुना तेरे वो क्या कर रही थी?
Yeah.
I mean, we
Absolutely.
have such a bonding right now.
Yeah. Totally. I mean, honestly, I don't think you realize how close you are as friends until you gossip. It's you feel like there's a barrier that hasn't been broken, so
Yeah,
you're not close enough unless you gossip.
that is true. I am ashamed to say that is true. Although I shouldn't be ashamed now, but I used to think that gossip nahi karna chahiye. Like I used to believe that, and then I realized that you're missing out on a lot.
Yeah, but also, I mean, as long as you're not being a nasty human being, it's good
Yeah,
to gossip. It's
it
good
is
to
good to
gossip.
gossip. Yeah, it is
Mhm.
good, and there is terrific bonding that happens.
Yeah, absolutely,
Okay,
absolutely.
awesome. Chat. You and I should gossip sometime. We should have we should have a gossip session. We should talk about what all the other chats are doing on YouTube. All right, cool.
um,
So then, okay, so this is a good starting point. We are language has originated because of
mhm.
survival, community, and gossip.
Yeah.
Okay, I love it. All right. So then, any form of communication that fulfills these criteria will work as
Yes,
language. Okay.
yes, I think so. But
All right.
just speaking about language in general, oh, I think I'm losing my train of thought.
Mm-hmm.
Never mind.
We
Leave
were,
it. I'll come back to it.
yeah.
I'll come
So
back to it.
I distracted you from Hobbes. So you were telling me of somebody in the 16th century.
No,
Who,
wait a second. Wait a
yeah,
second. Just before we go into that,
yeah.
I think it was Darshan who said something about knowledge being
Language
language being a
being,
barrier to knowledge about
yeah,
self,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
That's an incredible point, and I think if I am able to, I should be able to get back to it,
Okay.
because the problem that I have with philosophy of language, as we will unearth tonight, is ultimately an epistemic issue. And what's episteme? Episteme is just knowledge, right?
Okay.
So
Yeah.
our whole problem with language has something to do with our ability to know things. So Darshan has read something correct. This is on the right path of things.
Yeah.
Um,
Epistemology is the study of knowledge itself.
Knowledge. Yeah, yeah.
Right. So it makes us question when you say you know something, how
Do
do you
you
know you
actually know
know?
it?
Yeah.
Hmm. Hmm.
Amazing. Okay.
And so an epistemic issue is just about, like, do you really know it? How do you know it?
Yeah.
Can you know it? Stuff like that.
Yeah. The dark
Okay.
spiral that all philosophers go down and they end up picking straws from their hair. Like, what
The
is it?
dark the dark spiral that only Western philosophers go down.
Yeah.
Because I think Indian philosophers don't have that Descartesian problem of, oh, justification, where,
Yeah.
what.
Correct.
Um, because for them it's just like, yeah, these are my senses. I sensed it, and now it's there or it's not there.
Yeah.
So they're not that worried about justification.
That is an incredible point. Wouldn't it be fun to do a in Eastern versus Western philosophy discussion?
Yeah, especially when it's about metaphysics, because Indian metaphysics compared to Western is just, it's beautiful.
Wow. And it's something that I'm super interested in. I mean, not just because now I've started reading the Gita, but even
Mhm.
from before, because it almost seems like two different species in the way that Eastern and Western people think. The
Right.
philosopher, of course, the way the people think is reflected from the way the philosophers have framed their philosophy, right? So
Mm-hmm.
that becomes,
Absolutely.
and that sort of trickles down all the way to society, and every decision you take has some reflection of that.
Yeah, I'm glad you give us so much importance. Yes. Totally. It's
Yeah.
all us.
It's all.
Um,
Well, yeah. So when I have a guest on my channel, I make them feel super important.
Thanks. You're
Rightly
doing a
so.
great job.
Rightly so.
Great job.
Okay.
Thanks.
Okay. Back to
Okay.
language.
All right. Back to Hobbes, who
Yeah.
is from the 16th century, which makes so much sense because Hobbes, his political philosophy book was. I choked. All right. I'm
We
sorry
are
about
all
that.
we are all learning.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
So
Oh, Arrival. That's a lovely movie, Pratik. And yes, language.
absolutely.
We should talk. In fact, wait. Let me write that down. Arrival is something we should talk about in today's stream. Yeah.
Arrival is something that I watched almost half asleep, but I know it and I loved it.
I watched it thrice. I will. I have you covered.
Right.
Don't worry.
Okay.
Yeah, it is okay. Yeah, we'll talk about it. We'll talk about Arrival.
All right.
Thanks for that.
So,
Yeah.
okay, so give me 10 minutes to give you the story of origination.
Sure. I'm going to write it
Alright.
down. I'm going to make notes.
All right, perfect, beautiful. So, we've talked a lot about language in general. Now we're going to get super specific because that's just how philosophers work.
How we roll. Yeah.
Yeah, and how I roll. You're not a philosopher yet.
Wow. Wow. So much of groupism, so much tribalism happening.
No. We'll start gossiping and you'll be a philosopher.
All right. Cool.
Okay, so we're only going to be talking about names
Yeah.
right now.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah.
And Hobbes' whole idea, as I just communicated, is that you're not talking about the object.
Mhm.
You're talking about what later on we're going to find out is the presentation of the object in your head.
Right.
Okay, so there's the object, there is something in the middle which I'm going to define a little later, and
Yeah.
then there's the presentation of it in your head.
Yeah.
Mill comes along and says, hey, well, I mean, that doesn't seem right. When I say I want to hug Taylor Swift,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying
As
I
one
want
does.
to hug, as one does. I'm not saying I want to hug the idea of Taylor Swift that is in my head. I'm saying that I want to hug the actual Taylor Swift,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
So it seems like when I'm using somebody's name,
Hmm.
sometimes I am referring to the actual object and
Hmm.
not just to the presentation of it.
Hmm. Hmm.
And that's what Mill is saying.
Okay. So
Alright.
Hobbes versus Mills was the ultimate rap battle of philosophy at that time.
Oh, no.
No.
It was, Hobbes comes for one sentence, one paragraph in Mill, and then he's gone forever.
Oh, really? Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
But I focus on Hobbes because I think he says something important later.
Yeah. Sure.
Okay. The real rap battle happens with Frege and Russell.
Okay.
And Russell, you're aware of Bertrand Russell.
Yes.
He was a logician. He was a pacifist. He
Yeah.
argued against war during the First World War and Second World War.
Yes.
And he works with Frege to create this framework.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not going to talk too much about that framework because it's too technical and it's not important. But what they're trying to say is
When was Bertrand Russell?
Bertrand Russell was definitely 1908.
Chat, can you check when was Bertrand Russell,
He
please?
died 1960-ish. So
I love how we can take a vibe of the teacher. I love it.
okay, no, seriously, he was quite active during the World War eras.
Yeah,
So
okay.
so he was alive and writing at that time.
Okay. Cool.
And
Continue.
so Bertrand and Frege, these two guys, they build this whole framework. I'm not going to go into it too much, but I just want to tell you the object is still there and the presentation is still there.
Hmm.
But what connects the object and the presentation is something called a sense.
Yeah.
All right. And I'm going to illustrate what this sense is for Frege and Russell. It's a description of the person, but it's one description and it is uniquely identifying.
Okay.
All right. So it can't just be so my sense for you, Siddharth, cannot just be the neuroscientist. Are you the neuroscientist?
Yes, sure. No, I'm a neurologist.
Neurologist. All
Yeah.
right. Let's go with the right terminology.
Yeah.
So the neurologist in Mumbai.
Hmm.
It can't just be that. Even if you're the only neurologist I know,
Hmm.
it can't just be that, because this description of you can actually pick out many other neurologists that live in Mumbai,
Sure.
right? So it has
Yeah.
to be uniquely identified.
Right.
Now, a very familiar name, I hope, is Kripke in
Okay.
philosophy of language.
Okay.
Um, and he comes and tells Frege and Russell that, well, it doesn't seem quite right
Mm-hmm.
that we have this one description that uniquely identifies somebody, and like that's it. Wouldn't it make more sense to have a cluster of descriptions, a group of
For
descriptions?
example.
So instead of trying to find out some unique information about you, I would have a couple of like descriptions. So it could be neurologist from Mumbai, has interest in philosophy, has
Hmm.
interest in music, etc., etc., etc.
So with
So
each description, you are narrowing down the identity.
absolutely.
Okay.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
So Kripke's idea is these descriptions individually, they don't have to be uniquely identifying.
Hmm.
As long as once put together, they start to narrow down and pick out the person that I'm talking
Yeah. Which is interesting because that's the concept of Indian names,
about. Mm-hmm.
as opposed to Western names. Because in India, uh, you can pretty much narrow down a person with just their name, in because in
Mm-hmm.
terms of like their full name will have at least in South India, it's sort of like your name, which is you, and
Yeah,
then there's a surname which sort of gives you your
it's your father's
caste and
name.
no, not your father's name, no. So
Oh,
you
sorry.
you have like your the caste or the community you're from, and then there is a family name which is sort of which family are you from. So
Yeah.
it's almost like an address.
Uh-huh.
So if because it's the chances of two people being named the same thing in that community in that particular family, I mean, would be less. So there'll be one or two, and you can identify it down to that much. Whereas
Mm-hmm.
if you find a John Smith, can't really, there's no
Yeah.
localization, there's no you
Yeah.
can't really break it down. So yeah, somebody just said it's the same in taxonomy. So like in
Mm-hmm.
Indian, the Indian system is almost like taxonomy.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, now there is a lot of negative connotations to it because identification got coupled with discrimination,
Mm-hmm.
which is a huge problem. But identification itself should not have been a problem. So
Yeah.
this is and this is a recurring theme in almost all of Indian traditions. I feel like the thought and the concept behind it was pretty good, but then because it got coupled with a lot of negative acts, uh, we have had to pretty much go away from the whole thing. Anyway, that's like a different thought, but
I wonder if you're going to reconsider that position once you really get into Gita.
okay.
Yeah. Um,
In terms of discrimination, you mean?
yeah, like I'm not very familiar with this and I don't want to make too many claims, but
Sure.
I had a course where we were looking at alternative narratives of history.
Yeah.
And my professor spent a lot of time telling us that, it's not just that there was a functionalist perspective of how the Indian society worked. It was always supposed to be, um, discriminatory.
Hmm.
If the system is built in a way to hold you down to something that you might not have wanted,
Hmm.
then it is slightly
Yeah.
discrimination, right?
True. 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 True.
Um, but I don't know. It's been a while. Maybe that wasn't even my prof's
Yeah.
argument.
Yeah.
I will also have to look at it again.
Yeah. So
But I mean, I do have my reservations of just saying, okay, well, the caste system, for example, is it's just been tainted through the ages, but it started off with something functionalist.
yeah. Yeah, no, I completely understand. The I think that, and this is just something that I feel, and I will obviously keep changing my opinion as I learn more. But uh, I think it also has a lot to do with the timing. So in society, like since we're talking about this, there is a time for every social value.
All right. Yeah.
So there, and social values are a luxury, like, make no mistake.
Mm-hmm.
So social universal equality is a luxury.
Yeah.
And a lot of the capacity for
Mm-hmm.
every child born anywhere to have the access to the same resources is a luxury that society
Absolutely.
has to reach, right? Because there has to be enough resources to for equitable distribution. And the only way society can reach there is by creating enough, by innovating enough, by making sure that your primary fears of survival and all those things are taken care of. And I feel that in 2020, the kind of luxuries we have allow us to talk about a lot of things in a way that maybe in the year 1000 BC we would not have been able to. So over there, probably efficiency of societies working would be a lot more of priority. So you need to have a society that is very efficient in doing what it can. So somebody who's in a soldier family, their kids will become soldiers, so that you kind of have that system going on. And a carpenter family will, because who else will teach that kid? There is no centralized form of learning. There is no so it's, I mean, there are so many variables. And the biggest challenge is judging or trying to understand something from 10,000 years ago using context that we have developed in the last 200 years. There is a lot
Yeah.
gets lost in translation. So that is what I feel.
Absolutely. I and I mean, I it's true that I can't comment on what a civilization was like at 1000 BC.
Yeah.
But I just, and you're right that there are certain social values that are accessible and they are luxuries at certain points of time.
Yeah.
I can't dispute that. I mean, I see it happening.
Yeah.
Um, but I feel like it doesn't change the fact that something is a social value
Hmm.
even at a time when it's not accessible,
Hmm.
and that something is discriminatory even if it has to be the way things are.
It's uh, I think that this should be a different conversation.
Yeah,
But
we.
this is connected though. No, it's not.
Mhm.
It is connected though, because it is still the power of words. It's still
Oh yeah, for sure.
the kind of context that you place on words, and the kind of context that you place on um, different subjects. It reflects what we feel. And what we feel has so much to do with the times we live in. So again, we can literally talk about anything, and to connect it to language is just one line, because these are all different ways in which language works. The power of words, like how in today's time there are a lot of words that we can't say or we shouldn't say, which 100 years ago was not the case. And that will keep changing. There are a lot of words that we are very comfortable using now that our kids or our grandkids would look down upon, and
Yeah,
they will say,
I
how could you say this?
yep,
This is so wrong, because the contexts would have changed by then,
right.
right? So that
But
is
does
that is
the
what I
but
meant.
does the value but does the value change? I don't know. I don't think so.
Yeah,
I don't know.
maybe.
Ah,
Tell me,
man.
continue where you were. So we finished
Right.
Hobbes. So Hobbes said that object, and that's it. Mill said that, hey, it's not just object, I want to hug Taylor Swift. So there
Yeah,
is meaning.
Talks about the presentation,
Yeah.
the thought.
Yeah.
Mill talks about the actual object. He
Yeah.
wants to hug Taylor Swift.
Yes.
Frege and Russell say, okay, well, you need one defining
Description for one thing.
that, yeah, that connects your presentation to the actual object.
Right.
That's a very important thing, because that's where the channel of whatever's going on over here is going to connect with whatever is going on outside.
Got
So
it.
that's really cool. And Kripke is just like, okay, well, it doesn't seem right that it's one.
Yeah, you need a
It needs to be a cluster.
cluster. Okay, got it.
Okay, great. So now we're all caught up with philosophy of language.
Okay, that's it, guys. I hope. No. So then what?
Okay, now the thing is, it seems like these descriptions, right? This cluster of description, it's supposed to instantiate the person. What do I mean by instantiation? It just means that, when I say all of these things, the image that should come into your head is that of the person,
Hmm.
right? Um, but and I keep bringing up a love situation
Mm-hmm.
to make this. We've talked about this before, Sid, so you know what's coming up.
Yeah.
Um, just for our audience's sake,
Mm-hmm.
I took a philosophy of love course over the summer, and so all I've been thinking about is how relationships start and how relationships work.
Okay. This
And
got
it's
interesting.
has it okay. And and I don't know why my entire course was talking about love very positively, right? How do you know the person you love? How do you give them love? By giving them just attention, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
But I was just looking at like a complete flip side of it, where I kept saying, okay, well, when I meet somebody and I somehow instantly know that I'm attracted to them,
Yeah.
right? It seems like I've already formed this image of them in my head, and I'm going to spend time with that image in my head, right? I'm
Right.
going to think about them. I'm going to maybe even talk to them,
Yeah.
imagine what it's like spending time with them. And I'm slowly building this personality in my head,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
And of course, I already have a set of beliefs that, okay, if I have a significant other, these are the kinds of um traits that I want them to have,
Qualities that, yeah, sure.
right?
Like a
So
checklist.
absolutely. So it's very easy for me to project what I want
Hmm.
into this image of a person. Sounds very familiar so far to
Hmm.
people, I hope.
Yeah.
I can't be alone in this because then I'll feel like a
Everyone does
crazy
this.
person.
Everyone does
Okay,
this.
cool, great, thank God. Okay. Now it seems like um the only way that I can no, let me backtrack for a second.
Yeah.
Do you realize what's happening? This presentation of this person in my head,
Hmm.
which is a little bit of what I gauged from my interaction with them, and a lot of what I want from them,
Yeah.
right? This presentation of them does not have to accrue with who they actually are.
Oh boy. Every Tinder date ever, as per what my friends have told me, is
Okay.
that, isn't it? Because you see someone, and all the things that they have not put out, like all the things that they've put, the details
Yeah.
that they've put up,
Yeah.
uh, you take all that and you add a lot of it in your head,
Mm-hmm.
and then you form this person, you form this meaning, and then you go in with that expectation that this is that person, but you have created that person.
Mm-hmm.
And you might think that, okay, meeting them would solve it, but no, it doesn't really, because
Yeah.
meeting them is just another way of information getting in, but you are still going to take all that information and put it together in the way that you want.
Yeah.
And this is very, very similar to what we do with words and language.
Well, all of this is happening using language, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, what's the biggest challenge that is happening for our philosophers? They said that as long as we have these descriptions, our mental stuff can reach out to the stuff outside in the real world.
Right.
But it seems like our mental presentations are, or can be, and sometimes, most times are, different from what we see in the real world.
Yes. And this is the biggest challenge that we have in this sort of disconnect between what is what is real. Every
Mm-hmm.
discussion comes down to this, and the only thing that I hold on to is neuroscience. So for me, it sort of comes down to that
Mm-hmm.
let me try and make sense of it from a neuroscience perspective,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm really curious to see what philosophy made out of it. Like
Right.
what came after Krippy? So what did they conclude?
Well, I mean, at this point, we're not looking at philosophy of language. We're looking at what I have, and
Yeah.
and not that I'm a philosopher per se, but I have done 3 years of philosophy
Yes.
studies.
All right.
And this is what I have. I hope I had more experience only, and I'd done more reading to give you something that is actually real.
Yeah.
But let's see what I have to offer, right?
Tell me.
Okay. So, um, these descriptions, whatever you have in your mental image, it's not going to accrue to what the actual human being may be like, right? And you have two options, right? When you meet this person again, imagine if I meet this person and I say, oh, she is shy and I
Hmm.
want her to be shy. i
Hmm.
i see a little bit of shyness, and that's important to me. That's what makes her attractive to me. And so in my imaginations of her, I'm going to exaggerate the shyness,
Yeah.
right? And then I happen to go on a date with her, and it just so happens that she is not shy at all. She is loud and she is happy and, like, you know,
Yeah.
totally out there. Um, and so I realized, okay, wait, it seems like I've made a mistake. All right. Mostly we have that kind of a self-awareness, at
Yeah.
least when it's that stark, right?
Either you say that
Um,
you make a mistake or you end up disappointed. You feel like
mhm.
that person has let me down. In fact, that is more common. We very rarely say I made a judgment call.
Yeah, you're actually right. Yes.
Hmm.
Um,
And
and
same with
so,
words also. I mean,
mhm,
we because we have a lot of trouble in backtracking our own understanding of words.
mhm,
So if you take something to mean one thing,
mhm,
we generally we tend to hold on to that meaning, and if somebody else uses that in a different way, we we don't say that okay I made a mistake. We'll say that okay the other person isn't matching up to what I take. Love for example, the word love can mean many different things, and we don't really put in the effort to see what the other person thinks about love. We have an expectation of love, and if the other person doesn't match up to that, then you are disappointed.
right,
Yeah.
right. But I mean, I want to give us some hope,
Sure.
right? I don't think we always end up disappointed. I
Okay.
think it's possible that through language we are able to revise the mental image that we have of people.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I mean, maybe I picked up on some shyness, and in some context, she is shy.
Yeah.
Maybe when she meets somebody new, maybe it's when she's attracted to someone, which was good for me.
Mm-hmm.
Or, I mean, I add new descriptions to her. So when she feels like she's on the spot, she's not going to be shy, she's actually going to be more extroverted,
Hmm.
you know? So, yes, there is certain disappointment that comes with, like, having really high expectations
Yeah.
and having really stark realities. But there's also this way of revision of the presentation in the mind using language and using emotions.
Can you say that again? There's a way of revision. So by
Yeah, there is.
language itself, you can revise your own meaning of the words.
Yes, you can revise the mental image that you have
Right.
of this person,
Right.
because you interact with them and you get, more sense of, like, who they are,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
And it's funny, I'm talking to you about this right now like this, but, like, when you're actually meeting somebody, you don't think about the fact that you're revising the image that you have of them, right? you
True.
just you just it just happens.
How do
It
you
just
connect? How do you connect this to language?
Mhm. Well, as a student of philosophy, I can connect it because I can differentiate between somebody who's just experiencing things, so
Mm-hmm.
they're just thinking,
Mm-hmm.
and between me, who is the student, so I'm thinking about a person thinking.
Hmm.
right? So there's a different level of analysis that's
Hmm.
happening, and it's important for me to be able to make that distinction, because in general I won't be able to see how language affects my life. I'm not actually going to, like, even though I'm a student of this, no matter what happens when I'm actually meeting somebody and I'm revising their image in my head,
Hmm.
I'm never going to be able to cognize it in those terms.
So, Viveka just said that it's often our expectation that disappoints us, and
Mhm,
that sort of does sum it up because with people and with words in languages, just
mhm,
what we said, that we set a level of expectation, and if that's not met, the before we start correcting it, so it's almost like correction is a way to decrease our own disappointment. But
mhm.
before that, there is that sense of यार ये correct नहीं था, this is not
Right.
matching up to what I had, the meaning that I had given to this context, whether
Mhm,
it's a person, whether it's a word.
mhm.
There is always that sense of disappointment initially.
Right.
I may be cynical, but then I always feel that there is a reason for your mistake to get corrected. Because if you don't feel that disappointment, if you don't feel that, oh, something is wrong, why would you correct it?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. Uh,
Um,
in 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 love, we fall in love with our perception of that person, Shreya. Yes, we do.
it feels like that, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Doesn't it? It feels like that because I mean,
So I'll tell you. Okay. Sorry.
yeah.
I mean, you
Go
were going
ahead.
to say something. I'm just going to say how I see uh, falling in love happening.
Hmm.
So I feel like, okay, so there are two people. I don't know if you can see the screen.
Yeah, I can.
Yeah. So if there are
Hmm.
two people, the problem in love is that you are constantly changing,
Hmm.
right? And the other person is also constantly changing. And now, when person A sees person B and person B sees person A, the what they are seeing is a snapshot. So they see somebody, they make an impression. But
Hmm.
by the time they have this impression of person B has already reached here, and person A has also reached here. But person A's impression of person B is still of this one
Hmm.
because they are still processing this image.
Right.
And so they constantly have to play catch up because that is how evolution happens. and
Absolutely.
and this speed of change, the rate of change, can be very different for different people. So some people are much more what you call stable personalities. So
Right.
if I meet you today and if I meet you after 1 month and I'm not filled with a sense of surprise, I will say, okay, you're a stable personality, I know who you are, so every
Hmm.
time I meet you, you're not going to keep changing. But some people are not like that. Some people are like really, I won't say dynamic, but
They're
yeah,
going through transformations.
transformation. The common
Yeah.
word is chaotic. There's some people are chaotic, and every time
Yeah.
every time you meet them, there's something different because it's like there is so much to catch up on, and
Hmm.
so it's like you have to fall in love with them over and over
Over
again.
and over again. Yeah.
And it's almost like you're falling in love with somebody and you're on separate trains and you're they're moving in different speeds and you have to constantly correct your definition, your expectations. So that's sort of the yeah, that's sort of how I see a relationship. It's
Good to
it's
know. but
it's like a
but but
hugely yeah, tell me.
but let me take you back to what I was trying
Yeah.
to get at.
Yeah, tell me.
You see what you've done over here is
Mm-hmm.
you're talking about thinking,
Yeah. Okay. Oh,
right?
hey, can you say
These
that again?
these so okay, A and B themselves, they are not seeing the changes or the cycles that they're going through the way we just did.
Mm-hmm.
They are just thinking, they are just living, they are just experiencing. We, on the other hand, we're thinking about thinking.
Right. Right. So
All
they are
right?
seeing things in first person. They are living
Yes.
through life. Yes. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
And we are living, like, we are analyzing,
Yeah. We are
right?
detached. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I mean, this is where language becomes tricky,
Mm-hmm.
because language, the way they are using it, A and B, is very different from how you and I are going to use it. Because what they will see as prima facie knowledge, we
Mhm.
are going to see as context heavy stuff that we can, analyze and, break down, tear into it, figure out what it really is. They're not
Mm.
going to see that context heavy stuff. They're just going to say, oh, you know,
Yeah.
another day, I
Yeah,
meet you
yeah,
again.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Unless they
Hmm.
detach.
Do people
Yes,
detach? Really?
yes, yes.
That's such a disappointing way of living, though.
What?
That's
See,
an opinion. That's an
okay,
opinion.
okay. No, I'll tell you. I'll tell. Tell me your thought. Complete your thought. I will remember this, and I'll get back to this.
Okay. So all I'm saying is that there's a detached way of understanding things, and language behaves very differently in these two areas,
Hmm.
right? And I've been struggling with this idea for a couple of months now,
Hmm.
because when I'm just reading about what love or what language or what anything at all is,
Hmm.
the writer is writing for somebody like A and B.
Hmm.
But the second I'm starting to read it, I'm not A or B anymore.
Hmm.
I'm thinking about thinking. I'm you and
Sure.
I.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Is that a
It
convoluted way of speaking?
No, it makes complete sense because, okay, first of all, when you say rider, my brain goes provider, and that's really unfortunate because it just shows how much this YouTube life has gotten to me.
Yeah.
So first of all, that, okay, putting that aside,
Mhm.
um, I feel that we every animal lives in first person.
Right.
That is what they do. That is how they see the world, and it is all action reaction, action reaction. That is how animals live. We have the capacity to detach. We
Hmm.
are one of the few animals that we know of
Hmm.
who can detach. I don't know if dolphins can detach because we are not able to communicate with them, but they are the other animal that has a prefrontal cortex that is the same size as ours,
Right.
relatively.
Hmm.
And because we have a prefrontal cortex, we should use it to detach because we can. And this is detachment. uh, us talking about ourselves in a third person
Hmm.
is abstract thinking.
Right.
And when I get a so if I get a patient and I have to test their frontal lobe, uh, one of the tests we do is abstract thinking,
Right.
to see if they are able to detach themselves from the current scenario and think of themselves from a third person, because it is a sign that your prefrontal cortex is working,
Hmm.
right? So I don't see why you can't do it in love. Only thing is, it's more difficult to do it in love because you're so invested in the present tense, like in the here and now.
Hmm. Well, let me think of a case where we are detaching,
Hmm.
one that I can get on board with.
So I feel so. Vivek has asked detach in the sense. So Vivek, I think that detachment in the sense when you can think of yourself uh, as a in third person. You can think of yourself like look above and say, uh, so this is what is happening in the big picture,
Mhm.
and you are able to see things from not just your own perspective, but you're able to see from a bigger perspective of you being part of a much bigger picture. I mean, that's how I see it. Which is an
Yeah.
ironic thing to
Well,
say, but
I
yeah.
mean, so if I had to explain it, it would just be, well, black, I would use a jargon,
Yeah, sure.
which is just that you would be, I think it's called a different level of,
like a
mm,
like a zoom out.
not just a zoom out. You're just at a different plane.
Hmm. Yeah, that's a lovely word. Plain is a lovely word because it gives you such a nice context. um, because we are all Yeah, I love the word plain, for sure.
Thank
Yeah.
you. Okay, but I've thought of a case where we can think about the first person getting detached,
Okay.
and that is one where A does not actually meet B, does not actually date B,
Mm-hmm.
right? So A has an impression of B and is slightly infatuated with them. They think about them, but they don't actually ever date B. All right.
Okay.
You can think about your crush, or you can think about a celebrity. I generally think about Taylor Swift.
About Taylor Swift.
Big fan.
All right.
Um,
Clearly. All right.
um, and and it seems like um, you know what thinking about thinking in that sense would mean. If I have this idea that okay, Taylor Swift never swears, she's a church girl,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then I see her swearing.
Mm-hmm.
I know that okay, I have to revise whatever I thought about her, right?
Yeah.
And it's
Absolutely.
easy, right? And now there's something that's happening in this case that didn't happen before, which is just that since you're not as attached to them in real life,
Mm.
you are able to detach yourself and tell yourself that okay, I can revise this thought, this idea about them.
Right.
But that's when you're thinking about thinking.
Yeah.
However, like do you often think about things like that?
Okay. What I think what is happening
Mm-hmm.
is that as a lot of philosophy tends to, it's a circular reasoning.
No, it's not circular.
It's not circular.
Reason.
Oh, no, it's not. Okay, I take it back. I take it back.
Wait.
tell
Okay.
tell me how it's not circular.
Well,
Oh,
it's not circular because that's just not how it works. Circular
okay.
reasoning is a very, very specific thing. That's not what we're doing here.
Okay.
I'm just doing a very poor job, but I'll try to be better at this. All right.
Huh.
There are two things that I'm trying to communicate. The first is that we can think about things and we can think about thinking things.
Okay.
The
Yes.
second thing that I'm trying to introduce, but I'm not being able to, so I'm just going to throw it out there.
Hmm.
There's a difference between you experiencing things and you imagining things, but
Yes.
your brain doesn't know that. You have to tell it when you think about things.
Okay. I think I get what you mean.
Thank
What
you.
what you're saying is
Yeah.
I'm eating a cake. I am experiencing that cake.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. It's a Dutch truffle,
Mm-hmm.
and it's got some chocolate sauce that is poured extra on top of it.
Yeah.
And it's superb and it's soft and I'm having it after having not had cake for a month.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Special treat. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a special treat and I'm loving it.
Mm-hmm.
And that first bite, it's just perfect because it's got that sponge and it's got the chocolate layer on top and that sugar rush, and especially because I've been waiting for it for so long that
Mm-hmm.
now I can almost feel myself eating it now just by describing. And now it's all in my fingers and it's sticky. Now all of these things, if I keep talking about this, we are going to paint a better and better picture of the cake.
Yep.
And in your mind now, you can also feel it.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
You have that, you can have that sense of holding the chocolate cake,
Mm-hmm.
and how
Mm-hmm.
it's not very easy to hold because it's soft and it's you're going to press it if you squeeze it too hard, and but so you're going to eat it quickly. uh,
Slightly.
yeah, creepy, but no. I mean, it's just that I haven't had a cake in a long time. But
Okay, no, but you know what? We can change this to an example that will sound quite similar, but
yeah,
will make the point equally clear. When you're just
but now I
having
want
sex.
the cake.
Well, I mean,
Yeah,
okay,
the
no, but
yeah, tell me.
but when you're just like having sexual fantasies,
Whoa,
right?
you went
You
from
think
chocolate cake to sex. I completely get why,
that's
but
okay, but
yeah,
isn't that exactly what happens? You think about something so much and so intensely, you literally have bodily changes because
yeah. So
You
what
can't,
is
your body and your brain cannot differentiate between imagination and actually experiencing
so
things.
what is real?
Yes, it
Yeah,
can't tell what is real.
yeah,
You have to tell it
yeah.
that something is real and something is not.
Correct. Shreya, I'm sorry. So Shreya was trying to stay fit and diet and exercise, and here I am talking about chocolate cake. It's very rude of me,
Mm,
but I think I get your point, and I
mhm.
also feel like you're trying to say this in context of language, because this is how it applies there. When
Right.
what is the meaning of something? We give it meaning. Is that what you're trying
We
to say?
we give it meaning, but no, what I'm really trying to get at is language is what is going to build your reality. And I've already given
There
you
it
the conclusion.
is. There it is. Yeah. That's
Language, okay, wait. I've gotten way ahead of myself. I've already given you the conclusion. Let me tell you how we're getting to that, right?
hmm.
You can't differentiate between imagination and reality,
Yeah.
or your brain and your body cannot.
Yeah.
There's something about our prefrontal cortex, apparently, about us being conscious beings,
Mm-hmm.
that allows us to differentiate between just thinking and thinking about thinking.
Okay.
So when we say we're on the plane of thinking, this
Hmm.
can be imagination, this can be fantasy, this can be actual experience. It's all on the same plane.
Yeah.
Your body can't differentiate between imagining it and actually experiencing it.
Okay.
But when you go to a higher plane, when
Hmm.
you're thinking about thinking, you can tell your body and your brain that, listen, that was an actual experience, but this other thing, that was just imagination.
Okay.
And unless you do this,
Hmm.
unless you think about things and tell your brain and body what is real and what is not, it seems like you can just build a reality that will not accrue to actual reality.
Using
And
words.
using words, right? So you have to um, use language in a way that tells you,
Hmm.
okay, this is real and this is not. But let me make that connection a little more clear. All right.
Yeah. Yeah. Tell me. I want to see you make it clear.
All right. When I'm okay, when I am when I'm just thinking about something
Hmm.
and I have this mental image of a person in my head, I can't really differentiate between what is their actual property and what is a property that I projected on their image,
Understood.
right?
Yeah.
And so it seems like my mental image of them and their actual being can be different. The
Yes.
only way to revise that is maybe to interact with them and hope that you can change your your image
Yeah.
of them. But it seems like the consensus seems to be that no, we'll just get disappointed and we'll not like that interaction,
Yeah.
right?
I don't disagree with this even one bit. I'm completely on board with this idea.
Right. um but I mean, it just seems like it's very
Okay. Let
you
me pause. Do you have?
yeah,
Yeah. Tell me.
no, go ahead.
Okay. I feel that this is something that we already kind of know at some level,
Mhm.
and I feel that we all accept it and move on because we need to have a common ground to work on. It's like this. If you're playing cricket and if I hit the stumps and I bowl you out, you have to also agree with me that we are playing by the same rules, otherwise it's not really a game. So
Mhm.
that's what language is. Of course it is a construct. Of course you and I are both agreeing on a set of rules so that we can play. And that is what reality is. we all agree that this is something, one particular thing, and therefore we can all move on and build more and more and more real things on top of that. But if you question everything, then you end up with nothing, and that is not what you want,
Yeah. Well,
right?
I really like that you talked about common grounds. Um, you know how people like philosophers philosophize?
Yeah.
They build theories that that should account for the most common sense view. I mean, that's one way to philosophize at least. All right. They
Yeah.
want their theories to come as close to what is actually happening with us.
Yeah.
Questions that science cannot answer.
Sure.
Um,
Yeah, because
and
once
it's
science answers it, it's not philosophy anymore.
well, yes, and I mean that's a separate issue. But like all I'm saying is that it seems like whatever we got until Kripke did not account for the fact that sometimes our mental images are different from the actual person.
Yeah.
So even if I have language and even if there is some description or sense or whatever, where something, some mental image that at least is amounting to them, if not exactly them,
Yeah.
can connect with the actual object outside.
Hmm.
It seems like the philosophy structures, at least the ones that I've presented here today,
Yeah.
haven't accounted for the fact that they can be different.
Right. So where? Yeah. Tell me.
And that just to complete, and that's an epistemic problem.
Hmm.
The fact that your mental image is different from the actual object
Hmm.
is an epistemic problem, I think.
Hmm. Because
And
if
the only way to resolve it is through language. That is, if you're willing.
absolutely. So if uh you have to say that this is an orange,
Mm-hmm.
uh the like the epistemic, the problem that I think you're saying is that the orange exists and this is a person, this is just an object, and by the time this object reaches this person, that person forms a mental image of an orange, and then they will call this as the word orange, and this word will go to the next person, and this person has never seen this orange, but because these two agree that orange would mean this representation, so this person will also imagine this, which is a representation of this,
Right.
right? And that
Right.
is how communication happens. So now this person can imagine this without having seen an actual orange. I
Right.
mean, not having seen an orange this time. they
Right.
they still would have had to see it at some point in order to imagine it, otherwise it would be just a random bunch of syllables put together.
Mm-hmm.
Does that? Yeah, I mean, that is how basic language is constructed, and I think that is what you're
Right.
trying to say, because if yeah.
Right. Well, another so this, I think a lot of it our philosophers would agree with. All I'm trying to add to this conversation is that this mental image that you're creating doesn't have to be exact, right? It
Yeah,
could have a lot of variations from
true.
what the actual object is.
Yeah.
And it's fascinating that even with this mental image, which might not be anything like the actual object, you are able to draw that connection. It's still, even with that changed mental image, you're still talking about that same object.
Yeah.
And that's something that at least the theories that I've looked at have not been able to answer. And and that's an epistemic problem, which only language can solve.
Yeah. How
And
can
things
language
become,
solve it?
well, I mean, my only solutions are to think about thinking and tell yourself, like, wait, this orange, no, it doesn't have a brown streak running through it, or
Right.
it's not a golden orange, it's an
Right.
orange,
Understood.
things
Okay.
like that.
um do you want to know a little bit about what happens in the brain?
Yep, absolutely.
um so very briefly, what is language for me? What
Mm.
is language for me as a neuroscientist? Uh, Everything that comes in. So if you are a person, then you are surrounded by the universe, and the universe will communicate with you through your five senses.
Mhm.
And everything that comes to your brain gets split. So whether you are seeing something or whether you are hearing something, everything, all those senses will get converted into electric signals. So udhari, language becomes a problem, because it doesn't matter what you are calling. You're calling somebody your best friend Prashant, or you're calling something your Honda City car, or you're calling something an orange. All those things get converted into electric signals. So उधर ही सब कुछ टूट जाता है. So whenever you say what is the identity of something, and by the way, this is still your brain. So even before it enters the brain, it has already become electric signals, by the way.
Right.
So in the eye, light gets converted into electric signals. In the ear, sound gets converted into electric signals. So for your brain, everything is electric signals. There is no car, there is no orange, there is no Prashant. Now everything gets sent to different areas of the brain as electric signals. And suppose we take vision, and we say that, okay, so there is an orange here. Then in the brain, right at the back, there is a place called as the occipital lobe.
Yep.
And this orange gets split into millions of photons, right? Because light is getting reflected off of it.
Mhm.
And each photon will get converted into one electric signal.
Mhm.
And all those electric signals get sent to the back. And the back of the brain doesn't know what it is seeing. All it can see are lines and curves. Then there are layers to this. So this layer will add color. This layer will add movement. So is the orange moving? And finally, but it still doesn't know that this is an orange. And then finally you get with a shape. And this is, we finally conclude that, okay, so this is a circular shape which has orange color and it is not moving. Then we send this information to the temporal lobe, where you add the word orange, and you send it to the parietal lobe, where you say that, okay, so this is 10 feet away from me. Now finally in your frontal lobe, in your prefrontal cortex, all these areas will send this information that, okay, the occipital lobe has said this is a circular thing which has orange color. Your temporal lobe has said that this is called as orange. And your parietal lobe has said this is 3 feet away from me. So now finally, this is where you are. This is your conscious self. This is where you're thinking. And so you're finally, a conscious self says, okay, so there is an orange 3 feet away from me. And this is how you analyze everything. And when I think of language, and I haven't even touched on the part that deals with language, by the way. So there is this whole section here that talks about language, and inside language there is semantic and linguistic. We will just get to that, but this is the fundamental concept. Right? Now, tell me, what do you think about it so far? This splitting and putting it back together.
Well, that seems sensible to me, because there's only one instrument that needs to make sense of all of these different um, um, information
Yeah.
in one place. But I was thinking, is like, I mean, with the electrical waves
Yeah.
of of information
Hmm.
differ based on the complexity of the information?
Absolutely. So, so much gets added because by the time your frontal lobe gets the information that this is an orange, you are also getting an information from other areas. For example, your limbic system, which is where your emotions are, is also sending in information about what do you feel about the orange, right? So now you have the complete understanding of this is an orange 3 feet away from me. I hate it because the last time I had orange, I was sick. Whatever,
Right.
right? There are other areas that come in that is this your orange? Does this orange belong to me? So that is a separate context. Is it your orange and you were looking for it and somebody stole it? So that is a different context. So now you are feeling different things. Now all these different constructs come from different parts of the brain. So by the time you make sense of it, what you are actually feeling is the sum product of all these different neurons that are firing in your brain, which is why language is tricky, because every word can evoke different contexts in different people based on their experiences and the contexts that they have created for that word. So many times in conversations, you say something and somebody starts crying and you don't know why. I mean, not so many times, it doesn't happen every day, but
Right.
once in a while that would happen, especially in the hospital, where you would ask something ki, acha, is everybody okay at home? How are your parents? And so if suppose somebody had died recently, like it's a for you it's just a question, but then that context, that word could have so many different contexts for different people. So this is sort of why. Yeah, tell me, what do you think about this?
Um, it okay, it makes sense,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't think it answers what language does for us.
Okay. What does it not answer? And let me go deeper then.
Right.
Huh.
It doesn't answer what language does for us. And when I what I mean by that is just that it's not, I mean, it doesn't seem like language is just, information gathering about actual facts about my life, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, all right, I have a pink bottle over here, or I have some cheese in here.
Yeah.
I like the cheese and I want the cheese and blah, right?
Yeah.
There is a lot of abstract stuff that's going on. Relations are abstract, emotions are abstract, challenges and the way that you feel about them are abstract.
Right.
And I feel like language has a much more important role in those things. And I'm not sure how exactly this makes sense of that.
Hmm. Okay. Let me talk about specifically language. Okay,
Hmm.
and let's see if it helps
Hmm.
when we hear a word. Okay, so if I tell you biscuit,
Right.
okay, so these are basically just two syllables,
Hmm.
and your ears hear them as two syllables. In your ear, they evoke, they stimulate different areas in this part of the brain called as cochlea, and so two separate electric signals get transmitted, biscuit,
Right.
and they go up and they are put together in the temporal lobe. Okay, now what happens is those two syllables, there is a different part of the brain that analyzes how loud you were saying it, what is the prosody, what is the tone, were you saying it in a soft voice, in a bleeding voice, in an angry voice. All those things are on a different area, but
Hmm.
just the meaning of the word itself needs to be put together. So that happens on the left side of your brain, whereas all the other stuff happens on the right side of your brain. So
Right.
on the left side, bis and cut will get put together and it gets sent to two places. One, you need to know if this word, the sound biscuit, this sound has any meaning. So this is, it gets sent to an area called as the semantic area. So the word biscuit is now compared to this dictionary of meanings that we have. So we have like a long dictionary of sounds to meanings, and we'll keep comparing until finally we reach a level where, okay, biscuit means so and so and so. So immediately, as soon as we get there, it will trigger a visual memory, it will trigger our long-term memory, it will trigger all those things,
Right.
right? And another place that this syllable goes to is something called as the lexicon,
Yeah.
right? So semantic and lexicon, and lexicon is where the word itself gets analyzed. So actually it goes to lexicon first and then goes to semantic. But now think of it from another way. Think that you have seen a biscuit. Okay, so suppose you've seen a Parle G, and this is a visual stimulus. Now it has entered into your eyes. Now in your occipital lobe, you have finally analyzed the shape of this thing, and we
Right.
have seen the edges, we have seen the letters, and finally that visual thing is complete. The analysis is complete. This gets sent to the lexicon and the semantics, so that once we see the word, once we see that thing, your lexicon area will come up with the word biscuit, and your semantic
Absolutely.
will yeah, your semantic will say this is what the meaning is, this is what we are looking at. And obviously this whole thing is contextual, because lexicon also depends on what you are taught, and semantic also depends on your past experiences. So if somebody has been taught that biscuit means bicycle, every time they see bicycle they will remember biscuit, or they will
Right.
say biscuit, because
Right.
it has no inherent meaning,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And if every time somebody eats a biscuit they are given a tight slap, then they will always associate the word biscuit with punishment.
Right.
So this is fundamentally the problem of language, because everything is relative in the brain. It all depends on what contexts you are given. I think I went a little too much too soon. I didn't. The intention was not to, make it too complex. But yeah, since we're talking of language,
Well, I mean, you do cover this quite thoroughly and with more time in your series.
yeah, yeah, that's true. I'm so glad that you saw that. But yeah, let me see if the chat is still with us. Hitendra, thank you so much. Is I guess Nayancee question is why and not how, Vivek is asking. Is that true? Like, why is language? Yeah.
I can see what he means.
Hmm.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, mm, my question just remains how. I guess.
What exactly are you thinking about?
Well, um, I'm thinking about representation stuff even now, right? I'm thinking about how do you connect? Okay, so things like biscuit,
Hmm.
right? They seem very straightforward. You can't really mess up the presentation for it in
Hmm.
your mental image. How off could it be when
Hmm.
you literally have the biscuit in front of you?
Yeah.
But that's not the thing when things are context sensitive.
Yeah.
And so, like, how exactly do we use our semantic and lexicon
Hmm.
when it comes to these more context sensitive things?
Okay.
Right, like
Yeah.
just not just like singular words, but just context, as you're interacting with somebody, you're decoding what exactly your relationship with them is and what exactly is the expected behavior,
Yeah.
right? You're
Yeah.
doing this as you're interacting with this person,
Hmm.
and
In
it's your
real
brain
time.
doing it.
In real
Right,
time. You're trying to decode everything in real time.
right.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah, it is. Ronit has asked, is this the same way we communicate with a pet dog or any other pet? Which is super interesting because we think of language with other human beings, but even with animals, we do develop a sort of communication, and their words. I mean, the animal, or even the animal, tends to understand certain words and give context to it. When we say sit,
Yeah, I wonder about that though. Like, it's a human centric view that we have, where
exactly.
where when we interact with animals, it's quite one way. So whatever representation we have of them, we just take it as it. It's not like it's going to go under.
Mm,
I don't know.
I'm
Am
not
I?
sure if it is one way because a lot of animal like pet owners
Mhm.
can tell what their pet is going through.
Oh, that's different.
Yeah, so I mean
Yeah.
they know that अरे आज इसका मूड नहीं है खेलने का, और
Right.
इसको भूख लग रही है, like they just know it because of the body language. And yeah.
Right. 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 No. Absolutely. That's not what I'm disputing. I'm just saying it's not as um you don't have to revise your thoughts about the animals that you're interacting with as much as you are with other human beings. And
And
I
not
don't
as
think,
much.
right, and I don't think it's a thing with animal and human. It's
Hmm.
just that we in general have a human centric view. I don't think there's anything specially
Yeah.
different about just interacting with another human. I think
True.
it's just that we're taking it for granted because we have a
Hmm.
human centric.
Can't help it. We are
Mm-hmm.
humans, and uh, we do tend to personalize things.
Right.
There's a whole uh, like a section of poetry, right, which is personalization. So we talk
Mm-hmm.
about a phone like it has feelings, we talk about cars like it has feelings, and
Mm-hmm.
sometimes we talk to the car like arey, don't give up on me, please, like get me.
Right.
And we tend to think of everything as having the same kind of emotions as us. That is
Mm-hmm.
just the way we interact with the world.
Right.
Yeah, and that's almost like our empathy going through the roof. Vivek, do we need language to talk to ourselves? That is such an interesting question. Ah, I think
Okay.
so. I don't.
Yeah.
Yeah, Nancy.
Yeah, I think we do need language, but it's so hard, right? Because I mean, I don't know. I
What
I've
what
been
language
I've
do you think in?
oh, I think in English. It's quite
Yeah.
sad.
No, why? Why is it sad? Please.
Because I didn't grow up speaking English. It's just that now I speak English and I can only speak English, it feels like sometimes.
Okay.
My
Yeah, like
whole
if.
education was done in it, so
Yeah.
it's the only thing that's accessible.
Yeah. For me it's very weird. So when I'm in Kerala, I tend to think in Malayalam, and
Mm-hmm.
when I'm here, I tend to think in English. But
Mm-hmm.
it's also like it's super interesting because from this question, I think that even art, right? So I can never write in any other language. I can never write poetry in any other language because it's like for me creativity happens in English.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think I'm not comfortable enough with other languages to break it down and form new words or form new thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
And with with English is the only language that I have that I can do that with.
Mm-hmm.
You need to have that much control over your thoughts in order to do that, because in poetry that's what happens, like you're deconstructing language and ideas and putting them together in a new way.
Right. I was still thinking about that question about like using language to talk to oneself.
Mm-hmm.
You know what's coming into my head? The only thing that keeps coming into my head is just um, how do you trust your own voice for being charitable or for being critical
Mm.
correctly?
Hmm.
And you know what I'm doing? I keep shifting the focus from language to the consequences of language.
Yeah.
And I think the reason that's happening is because, I mean, language is your medium. It's
Yeah.
so hard to keep like the discussion stuck to the medium because we just naturally look at, I mean, it feels like our way of evaluating it has to be from the consequences, but it doesn't. We just talk about language, but it becomes quite difficult.
Oh, I love
Um,
that. I really love that actually. Because
mhm,
all this time, even I was thinking about how is language interpreted and what happens in language, but this is a hugely important point. Ki the consequences of language, the way we say things, how that affects everything, in fact, is a yeah, it's a very vital thing because that is what shapes society. That is what shapes us going forward,
mhm.
and everything that we say, the way we say it will matter.
Right,
Yeah.
right. And I mean, again, like language, it's anything at all, right? It doesn't have to be verbal,
Hmm.
and it doesn't have to be an actual audio. Yeah, it
Hmm.
doesn't actually have to be audio.
Right.
Um, and so definitely you can talk to yourself. And I mean, I think like talking to yourself, like using language with your own self, has to be very similar with the kind of cases that we talked about when we're interacting with another human being.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah, because at some level, you are splitting yourself up in a little bit. So
right, right.
yeah. What do you? Yeah. What do you think
I,
about? So I have something to ask, but I kind of want to ask it at the end.
okay.
So tell me, what else do you want to talk about before I ask that question?
I mean, I was just kind of blown away by this idea that do we need another plane of thought
Mm-hmm.
when we're just talking to ourselves? And it comes down to this idea of like trusting your own voice, right? And this is like being a college student and being somebody who's trying to think about things. This has been said to me 100 times. You have to trust your own voice. You have to talk to yourself. You have to
Yeah.
encourage yourself, but you also have to be critical of yourself,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And after a while, I mean, all of this assuming that I have supportive friends and family members. Imagine having a toxic person
Yeah.
and then like introspecting. It's so easy for a negative voice to become this critical voice.
Mm.
And then like using language to undo that and using language to continue talking to yourself
Mm.
just sounds like such a messy business.
Yeah, I think this is again a triggering thing, but
Sorry.
no,
Oh, sorry.
it's true because most of the harm and most of the good is done by words,
Mhm.
and that is that is the challenge because uh, only words can heal the harm that is done by words. So you kind of need to know how the harm was done in the first place. All of this. So even when we talk about discrimination, when we talk about othering, they are all concepts because if you put all human beings on an island without and strip away everything, there is nothing fundamentally different,
Right.
right? But what is also interesting is that if you do strip away everything, society will reform the way it has,
Yeah, absolutely.
right?
Yeah.
Because the fundamental
Unfortunately.
needs, sure, I mean,
Hmm.
there is no other way. The
Hmm.
fundamental needs will not change. You still need to eat, you still need to populate, you still need to survive.
Hmm.
So, and you still need language. So, if you strip away all languages from the world, and if you strip away everything from the world, things will still evolve pretty much in the same way. And the proof of that is how everywhere society has evolved in comparable ways.
Right. Right.
Everywhere language has evolved, everywhere religion has evolved, everywhere technology has evolved in kind of similar ways, and which is why I think that uh, and the brains will not change. The brain is the same everywhere. So some form of language, it's just that the words will be different, syntax will be different. The they will, like, so everybody says that, so Japanese language is very beautiful because they have words for all these concepts, like, ikigai, and like every word can be a title of a book. It's
Right.
wabi
Right.
sabi and all those things,
Yeah.
which other languages don't have. Maybe it's just because they think about that stuff a lot, but
Maybe
fundamentally,
it's because Japan and Korea are being fetishized a lot.
maybe.
But no, no, no. It is a beautiful language, and
Yeah,
that is getting the recognition it deserves.
correct. It is
Um,
absolutely.
mhm.
Um, so one second. Is it true that your immediate thought when you get injured or something is usually in your mother tongue? Janvi's asked.
I do say ma first
You do
when
say that.
I'm, yeah, when I'm hurt or when I'm like angry. The first thing is ma. It's like,
That's cute, actually.
yeah.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, that's weird. So when I stub my toe, I think I say ouch, which is, or I say damn it. Yeah, but then it is in
oh,
English.
well,
Yeah, I don't curse in Malayalam, which is, I think that is an interesting thing. What language do you curse in? Is
I
probably
don't curse in. I don't curse often.
sure, but
Um,
then that is your fundamental language, because that cursing is what is connected to your limbic system the most.
mhm.
So
Okay,
yeah,
interesting.
yeah,
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes
yeah.
sense.
Like when you're
I
super
mean,
angry, and
right,
what
you're frustrated. What's the first thing you turn to?
what do you
As
what do you say?
Mhm.
That could probably mean that is the language you think in.
Absolutely.
Okay,
Um,
we have to sort of conclude the talk,
uh-huh.
and I just wanted to give context to you also and to the chat also about what has been happening. 2 days ago, I had a stream on coding,
Right.
and I we spoke a lot about languages, and it was so we had planned to do this for a while now, philosophy of language, and
Mm-hmm.
the idea of doing that right after coding seemed very appropriate,
Mm-hmm.
because it's like we're trying to understand language as a whole,
Right.
and I felt like when we are trying to understand this today and going forward, there is a lot of computer languages that are going to be spoken about. So I
Right.
wanted to know, what is your take on that? What is your take on the philosophy of language from 2020 perspective? What is philosophy of language today, when there are more computer languages than human languages? So
Mm-hmm.
what's your take on that?
I don't really know how computer languages function. I
Okay.
have a very, very, very basic idea of it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but if it's going to be used to communicate what we want to communicate in our language, I think after a point I mean, it will have to. It's just a different mode of communicating, right? So just
Exactly.
like our brain is converting it into electrical waves, our devices are converting it into something else.
Beautiful.
But it still has to be able to decode whatever context heavy stuff that we're trying to communicate.
Yeah.
But that's just my very limited view. My
No, but
very, very
that's
limited view.
that's amazing, because isn't that the exact challenge that human languages also face?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yep, absolutely. The problem with presentation that we've talked about today, the epistemic issue,
Yeah.
I mean, how does that change regardless of your mood?
Yeah.
I am not. I like. If there is a difference, then I'll have to think about it. But no, it seems like it would remain.
At the start of the chat, when you mentioned about Kripke, and how
Hmm.
Kripke said that every word needs to have uh, multiple descriptions.
Right.
somebody had said in the chat that that is also how in machine learning, like in computer science, that's how it works. So every data point needs to
Mm-hmm.
have multiple ways of approaching it. So there are different levels, and so there's a much larger data set, and then a smaller data set, a smaller data set, and then you finally reach one particular data point. So
That's fascinating
it
to know
is,
that.
right? So it's almost like it's mirroring what human languages went through.
Absolutely. I mean, wait, I'm not too sure how this works, but doesn't it make sense that it copies what human languages do since?
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
cool.
But we are talking of philosophy
Mm-hmm.
of human languages versus,
Right,
I mean, pretty much the reality of computer science, computer languages, because we made that.
right. I mean, it would be interesting to see it taking a turn that we can't or we haven't.
Understood. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. Okay, I'm gonna see what. Hey, Vivek has said there are only 1,000 computer languages. यार कल तो उन्होंने बोला कि millions है. पता नहीं. They're just trying to like
But
make fun.
only 1,000. 1,000 seems
1,000 is a
like
lot.
little.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Honest Aditya, I review philosophy books on YouTube. We can actually discuss a philosophy book together. Oh, that's fun. The
That
only
sounds like a lot of fun.
Yeah, like I remember. So what? Do you have a favorite philosophy book?
My favorite philosophy books are actually all or are biographies of
Okay.
philosophers.
Which one?
So, currently I'm reading The Duty of Genius. It's the biography of Wittgenstein.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Uh, the only philosophy book that I've read and liked a lot was, well, the only one that I've read
Mhm.
is William Durant's Story of Philosophy.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
and
it's like the sapiens of philosophy.
I know. And there is this book that I'm reading called The Existentialist Cafe,
Hmm.
which is basically on existentialism and
Yep.
Camus and I think Sartre, and yeah, it's just like
Yeah.
a story.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I'm trying to read it.
Are you enjoying that? Are you enjoying Camus?
Um,
Some.
yeah, I am.
Mhm.
So I'll tell you what. I had a
Right.
problem.
Hmm.
I get super cynical uh, about some conclusions that someone makes,
Hmm.
because if it doesn't fit into my worldview,
Hmm.
or if they don't explain, like if there are discrepancies, okay, so I get
Hmm.
cynical of discrepancies. But then what I realized is that those discrepancies, just like you said, expectation, the era in which they wrote it, it's not like they're writing in 2020. They wrote it in the early 19th century.
Hmm.
I think, yeah. We really need to figure out our dates, man. Like
My
it's
dates are
embarrassing.
horrible. It's
It's
just like
embarrassing. But
one.
the time at which
Uh,
they wrote it, science
right.
was not there yet. So a lot of things that they concluded was based on the current scientific knowledge, and put it in that perspective, and it's suddenly awesome because a lot of things that they said are actually true, and some
Right.
are not. But I'm saying that after 2020 level of neuroscience knowledge.
Right.
So I'm sort of judging everything from that lens.
Hmm.
So if I put it in perspective of the time at which they said it, I'm very impressed because they're amazing. Don't bang
I
the table. Sorry, Nemisha. Sorry, don't bang the table. Yeah.
well, I must comment on that for a
Sure.
little while. The reason why, I mean, surely some of it is quite amazing. They were way ahead of their times.
Yeah.
Truly.
Yeah.
But the reason why it seems like their stories are still relevant are
Mm-hmm.
because they're not writing about um epistemic stuff. They're
Mm-hmm.
writing about abstract stuff. And that stuff remains. That stuff persists through time,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Which is why you find it topical even now.
Right.
Um, and I
Sure.
mean, I don't know which book you're reading about them. I haven't get come across
Is
it.
there one you recommend? On existentialism?
No. I I can't read existentialism. I've tried reading The Age of Reason, and I read The Stranger,
Okay.
and my relationship with Camus and Sartre is just okay. I read it, I enjoyed it, and that's it. Like I can not extrapolate an argument or their point of view from it. I
Right.
just can't.
Okay.
It's so difficult. If you're
Fair.
able to do that, that's bloody amazing.
Fair enough.
um,
Okay.
yeah.
Amazing.
Mhm.
Let's see what else chat is up to. It's let's see. All right, Chad. What else do you want to talk about? What do you have to say about language? Let's hear it. Miss Nonchalant has sent a super chat. Gossiping, if it's not as bad as we thought it is, why did we historically give it a negative value? Cause it soon becomes a distraction, maybe. Because we did. There's no doubt that we did give it a negative value at some point, for sure.
Right. Well, there's a difference between gossiping to build community
Hmm.
and gossiping to encourage false information.
Yeah.
And we've done a fair bit of both,
Yeah.
and
True.
we've gotten into a lot of trouble with the latter.
Yeah.
So maybe it has something to do with that.
Makes sense. Makes sense. Like just like everything,
Yeah.
start off with a good intention and then we screw it
And
up.
then
Yeah.
and then the excess of it is just a
Correct.
mess.
Yagami Light, stop it. Are you talking about the banging table? I said I'm sorry. Uh, don't write his name in your book. I don't know if you get that reference, Nancy. Have you seen
Uh-huh.
Death Note?
I have.
Okay.
I have.
All
I
right.
stopped I stopped watching / reading once, you know.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
Sure. So there are some really interesting book recommendations that people have said.
All right.
They've talked about Man Searching for Meaning, which is a good
Mm-hmm.
book. I have read it. I think I've discussed it with someone. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I think that was written during the Holocaust by
Yep.
somebody in Auschwitz.
Yep.
Honest Aditya is reading Meditations by Marcus Aurelius. Okay, that'll be fun to check out.
Have fun doing that. That's a fun one.
Oh yeah, okay, amazing. Computer language is to the point. They don't give multiple meanings to the same command. Acha, that's not what I heard yesterday. Unless I completely
Nobody
misunderstood.
knows what's going on with these computer languages.
No, that's not true. A lot of people know. We don't know.
Okay,
let,
we
let,
don't know.
let's not generalize.
Oops. Sorry. Okay, cool.
um,
Yeah, right. Mhm.
yeah, do you think Autobiography of a Yogi is a book of fiction? I don't know. I haven't read it.
What?
Autobiography of a Yogi.
Of a yogi?
Yeah,
I
yeah.
don't know what
I
this
haven't
is.
I haven't read it. I'll have to check it out.
Mhm.
Communicating for survival. Vaidehi said Kunal Bidwa. Oh, Kunal, hi. So Kunal had come on my Instagram live yesterday and
Mhm.
put out this really amazing beatboxing routine. And yeah, he was super impressive. So guys, check out Kunal's YouTube channel. I'm sure it'll be worthwhile. Okay, okay. Please stop. It's triggering. I didn't bang it after that. Did I bang it after that?
I mean, I can hear it immediately after you say sorry. So I don't know what's happening.
Oh god. Okay, wait. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to put like rubber foam mattress thingy on top so that you guys don't understand it at
Maybe it's
all.
not your hands. Are you moving your legs underneath?
Shit. Yeah, I was. But then how can it bang? Okay. All right. Fine.
That's how
Okay.
vibrations work.
That's how vibrations work. Alright. Okay. You know what I'll do? I'm going to stop kicking the table also, Naimisha is saying. This I feel like I'm in school now. What the heck?
Well, they were hoping you would have learned in school. This is disappointing.
Yeah. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get Bluetooth headphones and
Mhm.
I'm going to sit like here. Like I'm going to sit this far away now.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the only way. Because I get excited and then I think I start moving stuff. Okay. Anyway,
Mhm.
we are going very far away from the topic. Um, what else is going on? What Nicomachean Ethics by Aristotle? Nicomachean. Oh, really?
Nicomachean. I think that's how it's
Nicomachean.
pronounced.
Wow. Okay. Never heard of it. I
Nicomachean.
have to look it up.
It's Aristotle. It's virtue ethics.
Oh. Oh, awesome.
Yep.
Anmol Goyal, sorry. Oh, thank you, Anmol. That's so nice of you to say. Aman Tyagi he said, I was watching the Learning to Learn series. I'm on the third part. I just broke the series to comment here that you're doing a. Oh, thank you so much.
Oh,
Learning to
okay.
Learn is my baby. I'm super proud of it because the more I get into it, the more I realize that there is so much to talk about learning, just different aspects of learning.
Mhm.
And next time we'll talk about habit forming and biases, which would be interesting, which is also connected to language again, because
All right.
cognitive biases and so social biases are very very connected to words.
Mhm.
So how we attach meaning to words, and then you can literally trigger somebody by using a particular word because they are biased for it or against it. So
Wait, you said something similar about like biscuit, and if you hit somebody after they eat a biscuit, then they're going to have this like
yeah,
negative reaction to it the
yeah,
next time.
yeah,
And I understand that as like a this is what I call it. It's called a strong neural connection,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
So you associate something positively or negatively.
yeah.
I mean, I wonder if you can just do that with people. I don't know why I keep bringing it back
You
to
can.
making imagination your reality. If you think stay with me, all right? If you think about spending a lot of time with, I don't know, your favorite K-pop idol, right? And you think about it a lot,
Mm-hmm.
and you're happy doing that.
Mm-hmm.
You're creating this positive neural connection
Yeah.
with this fantasy. And
Mm-hmm.
if you do it long enough,
A part of you is going to believe it.
yeah. Um, and I mean, imagine what that will do to you if you ever actually meet this person, right?
Yeah.
The I mean,
That's what
if
fandom does, right?
yeah, but like think about your interaction with them in your imagination versus them in real life, and how differently you would use language in these two contexts,
Yeah.
and how awkwardly you'd be placed because you're coming to terms with the fact that your imagination is just that.
Yeah.
If not, then you're too far gone and you'd probably need security. Um,
Oh my god. Um, Somebody has reminded me of Arrival and Bhairav. Thank
uh-huh,
you.
yes,
That's absolutely a necessary thing to talk about. So
right,
let me recap.
right.
But the thing is, I can't talk about it without spoilers.
I've
So
watched it. I know what happens.
yeah,
So
but
you have to, the viewers.
chat, I am going to talk about Arrival, the movie, and if you haven't seen it, and if you don't want me to spoil it for
Spoil
you,
it.
you can mute me for a while. And when I do this, you can unmute me again. Okay. So, Arrival, the movie, is basically about aliens coming to our world and
Mhm,
landing in different parts of the world and trying to communicate with us. And they
mhm.
communicate with us through certain symbols.
Right.
And we finally begin to understand that, okay, the symbols are circular, and the way they communicate is that. And the more as the movie goes on, the idea the idea that the movie is trying to communicate is that time itself is circular, and
Mhm.
they extrapolate the idea of language to the idea of reality. So the idea of how the way you communicate can change your thought process. So the way you communicate changes the way you think about reality itself, which is a very meta conclusion, and it's a movie that has to be seen to be experienced. But yeah, I think I've thought about language uh, very differently since I saw that movie. So
Right.
I would recommend that you watch it. Okay, you can unmute me now. All right. Lavina has muted me. Yagami Light has said, I'll stop watching now. No, Yagami, come back. Uh, Jatin, I run an Instagram channel. What? Something I learned today. Oh, awesome. Okay, cool, cool, cool. Is body language a language? Yes, definitely. Body language is a language. You communicate a lot with body
Mm-hmm.
language, for sure.
Okay, so what you said about the way you communicate changes the way you think.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, does that okay? Again,
I love how you
um,
take something and then like, okay, let's set up camp here and spend some time on this.
well, the way you communicate is affected by your culture,
Yeah.
and when you're communicating, you are presenting your culture again,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
And each language will capture the culture of the place that is, right?
Right.
Um, and that's why you'll see like it's okay. So I mean, compare Hindi versus English, the mere fact that we have like these different ways of speaking to someone. You can say tum or tu or a,
Yeah.
and depending on where you are from India, like even they are going to be different, right? So tu for a North Indian is the absolute like
Yeah. Like a sign of lack of respect.
right,
Yeah.
right. But for a Maharashtrian, that's close.
Yeah.
You are close. That's when you
Ah.
right.
Interesting.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I think my friend she refers to her mother with two, and that's completely
Correct.
acceptable because she loves her mother, and that's
Yeah.
how she.
Yeah. Hmm.
But if I say two to ma,
Yeah.
she's gonna okay
Yeah.
then.
Correct. Tukute jata hai. Oh, that's correct. That's correct.
Right.
Marathi mein it's different. That's true. I never
Right.
noticed that, but yeah.
Right. So it seems like I mean, and that would explain why when we Hindi slash Maharashtrians Marathi wow,
Hmm.
Hindi slash Marathi speakers when we speak in English and we have to refer to someone and we just have to say you
Hmm.
need to sit or you need to do this.
Hmm.
I mean, I just feel like we humble ourselves down whilst we're speaking that sentence because we can't communicate it with just you,
Hmm.
so we have to communicate it in another way. It
Yeah.
happens to me very, very often. If I'm talking to my professor and I want to say, oh, you need to write this mail or you need to do this thing,
Yeah.
um, somehow I'll take a pause because I can't say,
Yeah.
right?
So you need to
Um,
express that through body language, through gestures, something.
right.
Like show that I have the utmost respect for you and apologies for not using up, but
Right. Right.
भावनाओं को समझो.
Right. But think about it. Somebody who's from America is never going to have that pause. And
Yeah.
there's no lack of respect there.
Mm.
So the way that we communicate has shaped the way that we think.
Sure. Like in the US, you could address your professor by their name,
Hmm.
which is unheard of in India,
Right.
right?
It feels it feels just strange.
Very weird. But then वहाँ पे they insist.
Hmm.
So if you call them like professor or sir all the time, they're like, no, please, call me by my name.
Hmm.
And it's again because of the social construct. What is acceptable in one language is not acceptable in another.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Amazing.
Interesting.
You with a touch of up. That's absolutely correct. If culture is religion, then all religions say same. I'm not sure what that means. I'm so curious about it. Like a deaf person creates his own language for himself. Hey, that is very interesting. The idea of what is language for a deaf person. Okay.
Oh,
I'm afraid to ask you these questions because I feel like you go into buffer mode. Like, yeah, I can literally like, okay, now let me take out some time and I'll get back to you on that.
oh no, it's okay. It's okay to take like put people through awkward silences as I sit and think about the thing that has just been asked to me.
Yeah.
Um, I think language as a role that it plays for us is the same no matter who you are.
Correct.
But of course, the mode of it is quite different,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Which is why, of course, body language is a language.
Yeah.
Doesn't have to be audio.
Correct.
Um,
And
you can still communicate.
yeah, because that becomes your reality,
Mhm,
and that is not any more or less of a reality than anyone else.
mhm,
Because reality has a way of filling up all the available space.
mhm,
So
mhm.
whatever you put in will fill up all the available space. So if you are giving it only sound, then sound will become your reality. If you put in sound and vision, that will become your reality. If you put in sound, vision and touch, that will become your reality. But reality will fill up all the available space there is. That's sort of how the brain works. So yeah, I mean, if somebody is unable to hear, then what they see and what they touch becomes their reality, and they will be able to interact with that reality in using all the resources that anybody else has, except they will interact in that way,
Mhm.
which is so, I mean, yeah, I think I'm going to read about this more. It's fundamentally a very, very interesting topic. I think I would like to reach out to people who are unable to hear, and um, yeah, yeah, maybe have a conversation. Yeah, I mean, it'll be challenging for sure, because there are a lot of things that we do take for granted, but then
Granted.
yeah,
Mhm.
but then it'll also be uh, I mean, for not just for the inclusiveness, because I think that awareness is so important, right?
Mhm.
Because we are having this audio visual format, right? But there are people who are unable to hear. Now, how would they listen to this, right? So how would they ever be a part of this conversation?
Well, there is subtitle, caption.
Yeah, but
That's one way.
correct,
But
but
you also have to be able to communicate it through the language that is accessible to them,
yeah, so
which will be more.
if I call someone over
Mm-hmm.
who is unable to hear, then that would make it a very, very different kind of stream, and
Mm-hmm.
maybe something that should be done, because it is not routinely done. I mean, it's just, so I'm sorry, I'm just thinking of how, since we are talking of language, this is such an
Mm-hmm.
important thing, because there are so many people who would have so much to communicate, but
Right.
who are unable to, because the this the system isn't sort of built
Built
for
for
that.
them. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think I am going to think about it. So yeah, so who asked that? Yagami. Yeah. Thanks for
Mm-hmm.
making me think about that. So yeah. Uh, so for a deaf person, language, yeah, yeah. Okay. Mm, actual deaf people talk about. You can search how deaf people perceive sound. Yes. So we will. Yeah. Let me think. Vaibhav wants to know, what does Nancy jotting down so much.
I well, I think about things and before I can forget them, I just write them
Yeah.
down. It's
That's
just
pretty
yeah.
much, yeah, basis of note taking. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Can someone born blind know any other color than black? Oh, so even black as a color um, is a construct.
Right. It's the absence of light.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, you can't tell somebody that okay, this is black if they can't see.
Mm-hmm.
So their reality becomes very different. Their reality becomes touch and sound, and that will fill up
And
reality. Yeah.
to be fair, even I mean, we can't really know if your reality and my reality when it comes to color is the same.
Oh,
We know that it's the same wavelength
yeah.
that's being shot off through all of these objects around us, but there's no way of actually checking that the blue that I see is the same blue that you see when we look at the same
Yeah.
But since we've come to describe it as the same thing, blue.
Yeah. We did a 2.5 hour stream on colors, and it was mind blowing because
Hmm.
we concluded that nothing is real. So yeah.
Where are you getting these conclusions from?
No,
What?
seriously, if you want if you want, just go and check out that stream. Check out the end
I
part.
will.
Check out the
I
end part
will.
because yeah, it's seriously there's no point in talking about reality anymore because it's all a construct. But yes,
No, no,
yes.
we are using language to tether ourselves to reality. Don't don't say
No,
don't
no,
say
I won't. I'm just setting the stage so that
right.
so the thing with reality is that we need to sort of deconstruct our original sense of it and then construct it again for us to be really comfortable with it because we have like we have to know how we constructed it in the first place. That's what I mean,
Right.
right?
I
So
don't know. I don't think so. There are
no.
people who are not self-aware and they're fine with it. So they
Yeah,
don't care about like questions of reality and like
fair enough.
needing to think about that.
Fair
Yeah.
enough, but that is not the audience we are talking to.
Aha. Good to know.
Yeah, yeah. My audience is very clear. My audience is
Uh-huh.
people who are questioning their reality.
Good. Good to know.
Because if not, then they don't want to learn. And
Right.
yeah, so if we are going to be learning on live stream, then you do want to question reality a little bit, right? Universe is really a dark place full of electromagnetic waves, and our brain lights it up. Wow, that is poetry, Vivek. That is super cool. Uh, all right. Dr. Sid was just curious to know whether being articulate in any language is to do with better vocabulary or clarity of thought or both. I think clarity of thought more than vocabulary. I think you can express thoughts in any language. Although, to some extent, some languages do have certain inherent advantages over others, but I think clarity of thought supersedes that. Because what
Wait a
you're.
second.
Okay, no.
I no, wait a
Yeah,
second.
sure, sure. Yeah.
Um, so vocabulary is important and like building on vocabulary is
Sure.
important.
But is
Um,
vocabulary important in which language?
in the language that you need to express yourself.
That's what they're
So
asking. Is it does
right.
it matter if it's English or Hindi?
Oh, that's what they're asking.
Hmm.
No, I don't think it matters which language we're talking about as long as I mean, I had a different concern in my mind.
Yeah.
I'm going to express it anyway.
You look
Um,
concerned.
yeah. So there was this time where, say, for example, sexual harassment wasn't a term
Hmm.
that that people understood,
Yeah.
right? It wasn't coined.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean sexual harassment wasn't happening.
True.
It's just that people felt wronged, but they didn't have
The
the
words.
terminology to 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 um to chalk that to. Like,
Very true.
yes, somebody hit me, so I can put that under this concept of assault slash battery,
Yeah.
right? But when somebody is sexually harassing me and I don't have the term of sexual harassment,
Yeah.
like, what am I supposed to say that communicates that this is a wrong and this is why it's a wrong? And so in that sense, we do want to build up
Yeah.
on vocabulary because there are so many wrongs that happen to us
Sure.
every day, and I feel like we still don't have um, the vocabulary to capture why it is wrong.
This is super interesting.
Mhm.
Um, Forget about the right and wrong for a second, but even paying attention to it,
Mhm.
even seeing it or feeling it, needs it to have a word.
Right,
So
right,
if you don't give something a word, there is a big chance that that thing will not exist. So, like you said, sexual assault,
hmm
the way we think about it, the construct of sexual assault is a constantly evolving one. So there is, and that evolves with our understanding, not like our construct, like the way we make of it, what society makes of it.
Mm-hmm.
That is how we see it. So
Right.
sexual assault at one point of time was rape. Then other constructs started getting added, that okay, what about marital rape, also sexual assault? What about uh, what about sexual assault that doesn't involve sex, also sexual assault? Because there are varying grades of non-consensual contact, and all of them can become sexual assault, but they didn't all become sexual assault on one day. They became,
Right.
that context changed over a century, for example.
Right.
And it's still not done. We aren't done. So in 50 years there'll be a lot of things that would change, that would evolve, and that is how it should be, because society is changing
Right.
and the meaning of words change.
Right. There seems to be this like movement, right? There are these power structures that are in play in society. And so the people who are in power, they get away with things that you
Yeah.
would think you as somebody who's not powerful
Yeah.
cannot get away. And
Yeah.
that's when you know, okay, some things are allowed and some things are not allowed. But the things that are allowed, are they all correct? If not, they're wrong. If they're wrong, I should be able to say that they're wrong
Mm.
and have some kind of um is repose the word for it, like something to safeguard me against it.
Mm.
um and I think that's it's interesting that we can experience things and experience them for centuries,
Mm.
um and not be able, or like significantly, meaningfully, and like globally do something about it
Mm.
until you start naming it and you know
Yeah.
start start chalking things up to it. Okay, this is the name for it, these are its descriptions.
Correct.
And funnily enough, that's where our discussion had started.
Yeah.
um
Which is true.
it, it's odd. I when we started this discussion, I thought, these philosophers are being very random, starting with names. But it makes sense. You have to start with names,
Yeah.
because how else do you talk about something? It
Yeah.
doesn't exist until you name
Yeah.
it.
It doesn't exist until you name it. Things
Or
don't
it exists,
exist.
but you can't talk about it until you name it.
No, it doesn't exist until you name it. It doesn't exist for you until you name it.
No, I mean, think about our sexual harassment case.
It would
We
have
knew that some wrong is happening.
no.
It
It
is a wrong and we feel it, but we can't, it doesn't make sense to us until we name it and define it.
uh exactly. So until you name it and define it, it
Mm-hmm.
exists as something else. Because if you are
Right.
experiencing something, then it exists. But its existence is defined by what you call it. So,
Mm-hmm.
if in say 1820,
Mm-hmm.
um, if there is a marital rape that happened,
Mm-hmm.
right? So, if a husband forces himself on the wife,
Mm-hmm.
then that the emotions that woman goes through is sort of decided by the constructs around it. So if that construct that is placed around it is that, uh, I remember seeing this movie very recently. I forgot which one, that says कि अच्छा बड़े बड़े घर में ऐसे सब बातें होती हैं. Some movie I saw, but I mean, like it was like the movie was set in like a very old time, and like in a big royal family, somebody had forced himself on someone, and one of the senior ladies is telling the girl that okay, like in big families these things happen, so you should just make your peace with it because you're getting so much in return. And it just struck me how wrong that feels now. Like it's absolutely abhorrible. Like you can't make sense of it. But if that is the construct that you give it, then that brain is able to make sense of it in that sense. Like this is a give and take, and this is something that we must live with. Whereas today it is not something that we must live with. And so now it is much more clearer that this is, even though it's the same incident, but we change the construct, and so we change the way we look at it. And so in a way reality changes. So it goes from things that happen sometimes in big families to sexual assault, FIR, he has to go to jail. That is a construct that changes for the same event, and that has changed because of our, or rather society's, morals, or what do you call it, society's, like, principles.
Right.
So when that changes, reality changes, words change, language changes.
I mean, a recent movie that has a very, very similar plot and
Hmm.
narration is Thappad.
Which one? Oh, yeah, yeah, such a good example. Yeah, yeah. When that
Um,
when that movie came out, like, there were, I mean, I have patients today in 2020.
mhm.
So, like, a patient says that, um, uh, yeah, I'm very unhappy. My husband hits me all the time, and
Mhm.
it is amazing to me that it is still happening. But yeah, apparently he hits her all the time, and she's just telling me that, it's just the way it is. He hits me all the time, and
Right.
she's never filed an FIR, she's never done anything. It's just like there is some sort of acceptance that, okay, I have kids, I need to look after them anyway, I'm not going to leave. So yeah, it's very, like, the human experience has so many different layers, and we would love for things to be very black and white, but yeah, it's an ongoing process. I think
Yes. Mm-hmm.
we will get there someday, but we are not there yet.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Wow. That was a lot. I mean, we went to a lot of places.
Yeah.
Uh,
Um,
Chat, sorry about that. I hope that I didn't digress too much. Could you tell us your opinion on nihilism? We will do another philosophy stream on nihilism. I definitely want to talk about it. I'll
that
start.
will be fun. I'm
Yeah,
fine
no.
with that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, nothing is sub momaya hai OP. Yes, yeah, Yagami. I know you want me to say it, but I'm not going to say it. Uh, Aristotle thought that spoken language was an outward sign of state of one's mind. Yeah, yeah, that's true actually. Honest Aditya. Uh, okay, guys, I think that we are going to wrap up now. Nancy,
Yes, sir.
is there? Do you have a parting message for us?
Um, yeah, don't buy into the nihilists when they say nothing matters and blah 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 when this new stream comes, because um it seems like we are living each day, and it seems like we do have a medium through which we are very much tethered to the 24 hours we have in each day,
Yeah,
and that medium is language. And it's going to, the way you use it is going to shape the way you think and the way your reality is constructed.
yeah,
um and so hold on to that, have a little bit of faith in them.
amazing, amazing. Power of language, guys. Change the way you, change the way you think, and change the way you use words, and everything changes. Uh, all right. I think. Wait, did I miss a super chat? No, I did not. Darshan. Uh, yeah, so Darshan has already said this, right? And we already spoke about it. That language is the biggest obstacle to knowing one's true self, and for it, it gives the mind its chatter. Darshan, we've already discussed this at the start of the stream, and you can always go back and check it out. And okay, guys, thank you so much for participating in this discussion. I know that it got abstract. I know that we
We
went
went
down.
to a different place.
Yes, but it's philosophy. What did you expect? We are going to do this, so we will be doing further philosophy streams, and I'm glad that people are interested. And Nancy, thank you so much for joining in.
Thank you
This
for
was
having
an amazing discussion. I know that you were nervous, but I hope that
me.
that didn't last
Yeah.
long.
Yeah, it did. It was good.
Yeah,
It was fun.
you were amazing. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. Thank
All
you.
right.
You were amazing. You were an amazing
Oh,
host.
stop it. Okay. Guys, I shall see you soon tomorrow morning 8 a.m. Bhagavad Gita. Let us do this.
You have an 8 a.m.? What?
Yeah.
Wow.
Okay. Yeah. So the
Okay, have
plan
fun.
is to complete the Bhagavad Gita in 2020.
Mm-hmm.
So that'll be,
All
yeah,
10 parts? Are there 10
18,
parts?
18, 18.
18. Oh my God.
Yeah. So 18 chapters, 18 weeks. Let's see if we can do it. All right. I shall see you all tomorrow. Like the stream, subscribe. Oh, there's also this plan of 100K in 2020. I don't know if you all know it. 100K subscribers in 2020. So, but that's going to be like a huge group effort. So everybody who's on the stream are personally responsible for getting me subscribers, because yeah, that's how dopamine works. So go, please do that. Go do your part. And yes, I shall see you guys tomorrow morning. Good night. Good night. Nayancee, you stay right there, and I'll see you all later.